Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legions of Christ, and I'm a theology professor. This is a podcast on the Star Coast Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 38, recovering Intermarifica 1-2 on social communication can serve mankind. This is before an introduction before the chapters. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican. So what does Intermarifica mean as a term? Intermarifica is Latin for among the wonderful things or among the amazing things. It's the first line we'll read today. The word things is not in the title, but in English, we can't just have amazings or wonderfuls, which is what it literally is. So we have to add something else because we just can't have an adjective standing alone like that. It is actually technological discoveries is what's being referred to, but the word technological discovery is not in there, so you have to just put things or something. If somebody else wants to try and do a better Latin translation, feel free. My Latin is pretty good, but it's not perfect. So yesterday we're talking to Sister Hosea from the Daughters of St. Paul, who is helping us understand this document and what's in it. Today we're going to talk about the importance of media and the reality of this greater power that can be used for good or for evil. So we're going to have two paragraphs in that. So the first paragraph talks about how media has a special place among all these new technologies, right? That kind of title of the document. Let's read it. Among the wonderful technological discoveries which men of talent, specifically in this present era, have made with God's help, the Church welcomes and promotes with special interest those that have the most direct relation to men's minds, and which have uncovered new avenues for communicating most readily news, views, and teaching of every sort. The most important of these inventions are the media which, such as the press, movies, radio, television, and the like, can, of their very nature, reach and influence not only individuals, but the very masses and the whole of human society, and thus can rightly be called the media of social communication. So that's the paragraph, right? It is this idea that technology is wonderful. Sometimes we think as Catholics, we're anti-technology, we have the church, and we just still use candles, we don't use electronic lights. And there are aspects we want to keep the same, right? We use bread and wine. We don't use Coke and Doritos for Mass or something, right? That would be very offensive. There are weird, like, Protestant youth groups that have done stuff like that, but that's not us. But the idea here is that because God gave us human minds, those human minds can think up all these great technologies, right? The kind of technology I'm using to record this and everything else, right? Those are amazing. But with the technology God gives us, we need to use well. God gave us wisdom to use it, but needs to use it well. And obviously, it's a little dated, the types of ones it says, press, movies, radio, television, like. I know there's not YouTube, there's not Twitter, there's not podcasts, things like that, which are probably today where more people get their media than from the press, the newspapers, or things like that, or even radio. But that's how it is. So there's an importance in relationship to man, right? Our minds, our communication media is at the top because it can really affect our minds more than random other technologies like, my car or something like that. It's great that we have cars and we have safety features in those, but, the developments the last 100 years, cars haven't really gotten fast. They've gotten a lot safer and a lot more fuel efficient, but they could have reached, those 50, 60 miles an hour back in the day if you had good roads and things like that. And then the media has that powerful influence. It can change society, right? There's that idea that's rightly called social communication. And this is where we get like social media today is using this idea because it's social. It's a connection between human people, right? We talk about sociality, and sociality in human beings is our connection with others, right? And some people really like just shouting to the void on social media, but a lot of people, what they're posting is to communicate, right? I post hey, pray for this person on Facebook, and I hope other people pray. Other people respond to that and then pray for that person or something, right? Or I post a funny meme about Catholicism, and I hope people laugh and think positively about the church and things like that, right? So those are kind of the idea, right? Paragraph 2 is about how media can be good or bad. So let's read it. The Church recognizes that these media, if properly utilized, can be of great service to mankind, since they greatly contribute to man's entertainment and instruction as well as the spread and support of the kingdom of God. The Church recognizes, too, that men can employ these media contrary to the plan of the Creator and at their own loss. Indeed, the Church experiences maternal grief at the harm all too often done by society by their evil use. Hence, this sacred synod attended to the watchful concern manifested by Supreme Pontiffs and Bishops in a matter of such great importance, judge it to be its duty to treat of the principal questions linked with the media of social communication. It trusts, moreover, that the teaching and regulations it thus sets forth will serve to promote not only the eternal welfare of Christians, but also the progress of all mankind. So that's the text, right? Media is a tool. It can be good or bad. People can use, online video streaming to watch, listen to a podcast like this, watch a kind of informative thing on some kind of animal documentary or something like that. Or they can use it for pornography. They can use it to learn about how to become a Satanist or things like that, right? Obviously, there's very big things that can be good or bad, right? Just like a lot of things which are powerful have those things, right? We've seen how some terrorists have used cars for evil. They've run it into crowds with vehicles, right? Or we see how, my dad has guns because he hunts and, he hunts deer and things like that. And those guns get deer. And as a kid, I grew up more on deer than on beef or chicken because my dad was a hunter, right? And that's a valuable thing to have. But the same kind of weapons you could use to kill people. And so the thing is, these things are tools. They're very good in themselves. They're good in themselves. Like my dad's gun, good in itself. It's the internet, media, etc., good in itself. But a lot of tools can be, its morality depends on if it's used for good or used for evil. And there are so much good things, right? There's this podcast. There's other podcasts, right? There's lots of Catholic podcasts. StarQuest has a whole bunch of them. My favorite is probably Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World after my own. And, there's E.W. Chan, there's other, a lot of news shows, there's documentaries. And it doesn't just need to be Catholic things. Like I was giving an example of like an animal documentary or a history thing where somebody's talking about, hey, this new archaeological discovery or something like that. I've listened to some YouTube or watched some YouTube things on that. And I find that really interesting and it's very helpful. It helps me to know more about the world that I live in. It's actually a good thing, right? But there's also evil, right? The pornography, other sexualized content, bias and twisting facts, the relativization of truth, where truth is just whatever the person thinks it is, instead of having an objective truth, right? The truth is the adequatio intellectus et re is the Latin term, the adequation or the relationship of equality between what's in my mind and what's in reality, right? So if I have a thought that the tree outside my window is green, that's true because the tree outside my window, well, at least the leaves of it are green. I guess the trunk's not green, but largely from my perspective, it's largely green, right? And things like that. So those type of things, right? And the kind of how media has gotten into our pockets can be good. I can pull up my cell phones. I can pull up Bible verse quickly. I can respond to someone's text. Hey, we need some help over here. But also there's all kinds of unpleasant, addictive, negative things you get into in that. And the church, one of the things it's talking about in this number is the church has the capacity and the responsibility to judge it, right? It should judge it. And it's interesting, the last line, not only the eternal welfare of Christians, but also the progress of mankind. And the church wants the good of all people, not just the good of Christians. Now, obviously, the church is first concerned with Catholics and Christians, but she wants the good of all people, right? All people are made in the image and likeness of God, and the goodness of all people should be shared. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a year. Hopefully, I am slowing down a little bit. I got a few comments earlier on that I was going a little too fast, so I tried to slow it down. Tell me if I'm doing better. I am a few weeks ahead on recording, so I won't be able to implement it tomorrow or anything, but I do want to make it so everyone can understand, and I do understand my own tendency is to talk too fast. So anyways, this is a listener-supported podcast. You can donate to help StarQuest produce and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one time monthly or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow we're going to continue on the next paragraphs of Inter Mirifica. Paragraphs 3 to 4 talks about why the church speaks on media. Please join us then to listen to more about Vatican II, which can be a blueprint for the Catholic Church. If you want more information, go to frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, sqpn.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information, such as playlists and individual documents and a reading plan. There's also an SQPN Discord server with a channel for this podcast at sqpn.com/Discord. Amen.